In this podcast, we're going to talk about how to manage screen time using activity menus. This is one of my favorite things to talk with families about. And I want to back up. Again, so much of our time with children is chasing them off of their screens. And children want to get plugged in and they want to watch their shows or they want to play their games or they want to do whatever they're doing. And we say no, or we say find something else to do. We say go play outside. We give them these vague instructions. And generally, groups that have given limits to screen time, like the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization, they tell us what kids don't need. They don't need too much screen time, but they don't give a lot of instruction for what they can do instead. And sometimes when we as parents are stymied ourselves, like, oh my gosh, and go play outside, and kids say, I don't want to do that, that's boring. Or why don't you go play a board game? Or why don't you go play with your Legos or go build a fort? Oh, that's boring. And so in my experience, the word boring is code for I want to be on a screen. And I think that that's really telling, because when you think about it, why would a child choose to be plugged into something when they could be painting or reading or drawing or playing with friends? Not all children think this way, for sure. But when you see your child starting to slide into that, they would prefer to do something that is so sedentary, it's so digital and related to being on a screen, and they start to lose their interest in other things, I think you're headed toward a real problem. In a separate podcast, we can talk about the developing brain and how screen time activates the neurotransmitter pathways that are involved with dopamine, and how screen times literally have addictive potential in a developing brain, and why that is one major reason they should be limited for children. But today, let's just focus on what you can do as a parent starting today to help create limits for your child and make it easy for them to find other things to do. So there are many reasons you might want to enrich your family life in simple, meaningful ways. And I'm just going to list off the reasons, and you can think about them and check off the benefits that you think are going to be most important for you and your family. So when we limit screen time and give our children other options, children will complain of being bored less often because they're more active. Active and engaged children argue with each other less often. Individual playtime develops independence with children. Individual playtime develops imagination and creativity. Activity with others promotes social skills of sharing, turn-taking, and problem-solving. And who doesn't want our children to know those things? Parents and children sharing activities together provides opportunities for parents to model emotional and social skills. Parents and children sharing activities together creates richer memories. Family members sleep better. Family members are active. They're more physically healthy. Children will have and share more positive memories of childhood. Remember something we talked about way at the beginning about how do you want your children to remember you? What kind of memories do you want them to have? That speaks to that particular point. Children will have better planning skills for their future, including with their own children. We tend to bring into our own parenting relationship experiences the things we learned in childhood. And so I like to talk about this when I teach classes on parenting, that there are very few marathoners who were couch potatoes when they were teenagers. When they're in their 30s, they probably grew up in a family that was pretty active. And so we oftentimes do what we learned earlier in our life. So those are the benefits of limiting screen time and making other alternatives clear. Can you imagine any other benefits that I haven't mentioned? I would love to hear them. So this is the strategy. You make 5 lists. Get a sheet of paper, or better, get 5 sheets of paper. Maybe start with a notebook. On the first list, you list all the things that your child can do inside alone on a rainy day. Not home alone, but at home by themselves. So they might be in a separate room, they might be in their bedroom, they might just not something that you do with them. And that can include playing with blocks, playing with cars, playing with dolls, coloring, drawing, all the things that they can do that don't involve a screen And most families can create a list of 10 to 20 things. Some families more, some less. But look through the toys, look through the activities, recall what your child has been doing the last 6 months or a year that isn't screen related, and just make a list of all those things. On the second list, all the things that your child can do inside with others on a rainy day. That would include things like board games and card games. I wouldn't just list board games and card games. I would encourage you to go through your game cupboard and list all the games you have, every single one of them, and the card games that you have, so that when your child is looking at the list, they are not just seeing 2 words, they might be seeing 25 words. So they have 25 choices, not just 2 choices. And so it would be really helpful if they could see all of those choices laid out in front of them. In addition to that, you can have other things like playing with siblings, making a fort, some of the same things you can do by yourself, playing with Legos, making a puzzle. You can do that with other people. And so there's certainly going to be overlap between these 2 lists. Now you've got your year-round list. In the upper Midwest, we get kind of crummy weather sometimes, so you can't always be outside. It's nice to have a list of things that you can do year-round, or that your child can pick from, or that you can help them problem solve with. The third list are all the things that your child can do outside alone. And in the upper Midwest, this is seasonal, and so you can only do certain things in the wintertime and very different things in the summertime. But it might be helpful to have some subcategories of what you can do in the winter when there's snow on the ground. Build a snowman, build a snow fort, make snow angels, throw snowballs at trees, play in the snow, go sledding if you have a space for that. And all the things that they can do in the summertime, again, different. It might be running through a sprinkler. It might be shooting hoops with a basketball. It might be working in the garden or something along those lines, bicycling up and down the sidewalk or driveway. And the reason that this is so personalized and no one can give you a list is every family is different. And you may live in different neighborhoods, and some families live in rural areas and some families live in urban areas. And so that physical space really depends on where you live and what you as a parent are comfortable with in terms of your child's safety and their abilities to manage being by themselves. Again, not unsupervised, but just things they can do individually outside. And then that fourth list, things they can do outside with others. Again, seasonal. Games of catch, games of tag, games of hide and seek, things that they can do with other kids, whether it's their siblings or with you as a parent or with neighborhood kids. And so you've got your 4 lists. Now you've got all the things that you can do, and there's one more. A list of things that you can do with your child out in the community. And every community is different, and you can define community as your local town or the region. So it could be a 60-mile radius. It could be just where you can walk. And I would list the places you can go, the parks, for example. Not just go to the park, but list the several parks, or maybe the dozen parks that you have been to or you want to go to. Because when children go to the same place every day or every week, it kind of gets boring. But if some days they go to a park that has got a whole different slide system, or they go to a park that has a climbing structure, or they go to a park that's just new and unique, or maybe it has some different kind of adventure, that makes it more interesting for them. And again, I'm looking at things here that are low cost, but you can certainly add going to the bowling alley, going to a museum, going on some other adventure. And you might even expand this to include the bucket list, the things that you want to do each year with your child. And that may include an adventure to a water park, but it's not something you're going to want to do every single weekend. And really, that's not what kids need. It's okay to have some things that are maybe fun, some things that might have a little bit of cost if you can afford that, but the best things aren't the things that cost money for children. It's creating those experiences together, going for a hike, having a winter camp out, a cookout, on a grill at a county park. So many possibilities, going sledding, all of the things that you can do with your child. So make those lists. And then when your child says they're bored, you can say, let's look at these lists. Mom is making dinner. It's going to take me the next hour or so to get that prepared. Look at the list and what are the things you can do on this list to help you to prepare or to keep yourself occupied while I'm getting dinner started. And so I think that it can be really helpful for you as a parent to model how you would use the list. You could choose these 4 things or these 3 things while I'm working on this. And then you flip the page to the second list, things we can do together. After we're done with dishes this evening, we can maybe do one of these 2 things. What would you prefer to do? So you're really using it like a restaurant menu. You're looking at the list. And as parents, do you ever sometimes feel exhausted at the end of a day and your creative juices just aren't flowing? I remember when I would come home after a long day and my kids would want to play, Dad, what do you want to do? And I would say, take a nap. And that was never something that they were interested in. So it is so helpful to have done the work ahead of time. You've made your lists. You've got your visual prompts, literally the words. And if you want to get creative, getting your children involved in Googling and looking up the pictures of crayons, the pictures of puzzles, the pictures of dolls and cars and Legos, so that they can literally look at all of the choices they have and they can pick and they can choose and organize how they're going to stay involved or active while you're doing the things you have to do too. A couple of rules that could be really helpful for you as a parent in guiding your children in using these lists. Recreational screen time should occur near the end of the day, not at the end of the day. We need that 1 hour of cushion time for kids to kind of wind down. But let's just say after dinner or on a weekend after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after the child has engaged in many hours of social, emotional skill building, recreational helping skill building, thinking and problem solving, and physical activity. When kids have done all of that, they have earned a little bit of screen time. Screen time is a privilege. It is not a right. It is okay for you as a parent to never take screen time away, but to reframe it and say you haven't earned it yet because you haven't done all these other important things, the work of the day. So recreational screen time should be earned. And it can be tied to things like completing homework, completing chores, demonstrating kindness to others. When kids have done those things, by golly, they have earned the right to have a little bit of dessert, a little bit of fun at the end of the day that involves a screen. So, for example, families might have a rule: screen time is between 6:30 and 7:30 on the weeknights and after 4 p.m. on the weekends. Screen time is a privilege, and the amount will be dependent on whether homework gets done, chores, showing kindness to others, and doing the other important things first. So consider making these 5 lists with your child or children. Think of as many things as you can fit in each category. Some kids would enjoy using the internet, like I mentioned, to do those Google searches for images, to pick out their own individualized pictures that represent the activities or toys or crafts that you have. And then imagine that those 5 lists with 10 or more ideas or pictures to go along with each activity would become your guide every day. And so when your child says they're bored or when they're looking for guidance because to them there's nothing to do, you don't have to be the recreation director. You don't have to be the one who says, no, you can't have a screen or you can't be on your television right now. You can say, here's your list. Why don't you pick something? Because our rule is screen time doesn't start until later. Here's all the things you can do while you're waiting for that time to happen. And then you share that list and you help guide your child. Again, this can help kids with planning, problem solving, prioritizing, delaying gratification, and expanding their interests beyond screens. And who doesn't want that for their children? Thank you for tuning in and considering this parenting topic. I hope this information added to your growing toolbox for parenting your children. Please consider exploring other topics in this series. Remember, no one parenting tool can do everything. We need many tools to become the best parents for our children. Your children's future depends on you and the time and effort you invest in them today.